Hey there, welcome to Studio 5. We've got a wonderful show to share. The first film from a new studio created and funded by Christian movie fans. A dream comes true from a million miles away. And a story of strength and triumph for a young man with limitations. But first, let's begin the countdown of the top 5 stories in the world of uplifting entertainment this week. Here are the first 2. At number 5.
Taking us on her spiritual journey. It's in her new audio memoir, But First God.
Big Brother host Julie Chen Moonves releases an audio memoir, sharing her story of finding faith in tough times.
Who was Julie Chen before she found God, and who is she today?
Julie Chen, before she found God, was a self-absorbed, career-minded, vain, gossipy, fun to be with, but probably kind of a shallow person. Julie Chen Moonves, who now knows the Lord, is someone who wants to help others, who wants to look at everyone with a soft heart.
In the memoir, Chen reveals she was let go from her talk show as her husband and former CBS exec faced allegations of sexual harassment.
We all go through hard times in this world, in our life, and mine are not over just because I found Christ. I think we need to keep our focus on Him.
At number 4.
Of course, I gotta thank God, because that's my secret weapon.
Sean Diddy Combs receives the Global Icon Award from MTV for his 30-year career in hip-hop and gives his fans some powerful advice.
Make sure you know there's a higher power of love, and I want to just say I give all glory to God. Thank you so much. This is a dream come true. Man, you just got to keep dreaming. I know sometimes we get hit with those hard things. As I said, I thought I was going to be playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but God made another choice, and I thank God for this choice that He made for me to be able to touch you. I pray to God you'll get to do something that you love for 30 years consistently. It's truly a gift from God, but you can't do it alone.
And so begins our countdown for this week. You'll want to stick around to see the remaining 3 stories, especially our number 1 story this week. They're all coming up. We turn now to Called Higher Studios, a crowd-funded Christian filmmaking company now premiering its first film. It's called Camp Hideout, and it tells the story of a teenager in foster care who keeps getting into trouble. And then he's given the option to attend a summer camp or spend some time in juvenile hall.
Are you ready for the best week of your life?
How was everybody's first full day of camp?
This whole thing isn't really my scene.
Let's begin with why this particular story for your company's first film out, Camp Hideout.
We sent out a survey very early on why did you invest and what do you want to see through Called Higher Studios. And one of the biggest responses we got was that we want to go and make movies for the next generation.
I'm Becky with a B.
I'm Noah with a no.
Oh, okay.
This story shows that Noah, who is from the foster care system, really has some walls up because of experiences and things that have just, not gone right in his life. And it really shows the power of counselors and kids and how unconditional love and loving loving somebody just like Jesus told us to do can really break down walls and really turn somebody around.
I do not have a crush.
He's had a lot to overcome in his life.
Stop that kid!
A little punk!
What was the process like? I can only imagine. I mean, you guys get a crowd-funded studio supported by Christians, and now you venture into actually making a film. How was this process?
With 6,000 people, you're going to have a lot of opinions and a lot of different things. We manage that well, and for the most part, everyone's on the same page. But it was a great experience because we try to keep everyone updated. We actually had some investors who visited us on set. There are multiple investors who are extras in the movie. Was fun and a great experience for us, and I think a wonderful experience for them. But it takes a long time and a lot of hands and a lot of effort. But together, we did a great job, in my opinion, and our investors were a huge part of that.
Tell me about the casting for this film. It's pretty impressive for a first run.
Yeah, we had some legends, come on set. Corbin Blue's been acting since he was a kid. Was a star of High School Musical and just a great, great soul. Christopher Lloyd, such a legend. Back to the Future. He was Uncle Fester in the Addams Family. And so, we were really blessed to have some great, great cast members.
Last chance, blah, 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 whatever.
That juvenile delinquent has been nothing but trouble since he got here.
What's your prayer for the project as it gets released?
I hope kids see this movie and walk away with a little seed planted of the gospel in their heart, so that if it changes them just in a little way, that they can go out and put that into the world, whether that is they go to school the next day and someone's having a bad day or there's a bully, they choose to take a different path and action with them and show them unconditional love and the love of Jesus. And at the end of the day, I hope families just go to the theaters and have a wonderful family experience on a clean, ethical film that has faith values. And, I hope that we get a chance to send Hollywood a message that says, hey, this is what we want. This is the content that we want.
Maybe a weird question. Which character in the film do you most identify with?
Oh, wow. I'm definitely Noah. I say that because, I was saved at a church camp when I was 12 years old. Probably like most kids, I was a goofy kid that made some poor choices. But I had a lot of people in my life, whether it was counselors or coaches, that chose to pour into me for whatever reason. And so that has greatly impacted my life and changed my future. So I would definitely say that Noah and I are probably a lot alike.
Knock it off! Sneaking in contraband!
You stole a magical video game from a bunch of gangsters?
We're going to that camp, and we're going to get what's ours. When I get my hands on that kid.
And so this story was really close to home for me because, I really made it for my kids. And I thought if I could make something for my kids that I would want to sit on the couch and watch, that hopefully other people will enjoy it too.
You don't think some people are beyond help? What are you guys doing here?
We're all here for you.
The Summer Adventure Camp Hideout is in theaters right now. Check your area listings to find a theater near you.
Still to come.
What's your big goal, dream?
I want to be an astronaut.
Oh my God, you're serious.
His dream feels a million miles away until it becomes an up-close reality. We talk with the astronaut whose life story is now a feature film. At number 3.
So sorry. Hey, babe, it's all right. What are we gonna do, Dad? We're gonna have to head back to the house. They said they're sending evac teams through the neighborhood, so maybe we get a call out. The down power line blocking the main road, there's nowhere else to go.
A Studio 5 exclusive look at On Fire, a new film inspired by real-life events, following a family in the woods confronting a raging wildfire, scheduled for release at the end of the month.
We're gonna be all right. Okay, we're gonna get a call out, we're gonna be all right.
Dear Lord, please guide and protect us through this night, please, Lord. And please comfort.
One of the beautiful things to see are the constant turning to prayer in really severe crisis moments. How important do you think that was?
It was definitely important. I think, this is a family that has faith. They believe in a higher source, a higher power. They're church-going people, and I think that bringing that, touching upon that, is important.
At number 2.
I always know you can change things. I've done it before.
A Studio 5 first look at Invisible Beauty, a film following the life of the godmother of fashion, Beth-Ann Hardison, and her longtime fight for diversity and inclusion in the modeling and fashion worlds.
Everyone's talking about diversity and inclusion. That directly stems from the work that Beth-Ann did.
Without her, the opportunities wouldn't exist for me to do what I love.
She's like a second mother to me.
That one shining light of kindness.
I got a chance to talk to your co-director, and one of the things that he said that surprised me was you didn't think you had a story to tell.
When I started, I was the first black-looking model on 7th Avenue. There was no people look like me. I knew the difference of segregation from childhood. These people thought that we were less. I let them know we are here.
You're just a soldier. And you're doing the work. You don't sit around thinking, oh my God, this is so amazing. Someone should do a documentary about this. I mean, no, I mean, you're struggling. Sometimes it's yay, sometimes it's nay. You have to play. It's like, what you're doing is really playing chess a lot, You're hoping that you make that move that works. You hope that you can make a difference. In your heart you can.
Invisible Beauty is in theaters now.
She sacrificed a lot. My mother has enough ambition for the whole world.
It's really hard as a single mom. I was scared to fail.
And welcome back. We've got just one more story to share in this week's countdown that's coming up in just a few moments. We turn now to the out-of-this-world story as a child. Jose Hernandez decided he wanted to be an astronaut, and he relentlessly pursues his space dreams for years, even as NASA denied him admission some 11 times. His story is being told in the film A Million Miles Away. We sat down with Jose and the film's director.
So, what's your big goal, dream?
I want to be an astronaut. I wanted this for almost 30 years.
Mamá, ¿para qué sirven las estrellas?
Every decision I've made with the space program in mind.
Jose, so many children grow up wanting to be astronauts at some point. What is it about your story that made you stick it out for so long?
When I saw the very last man walk on the moon on TV, astronaut Gene Cernan, that's when the dream was conceived that I was going to be an astronaut. And I never looked back from after that. I said, that's what I'm going to do. That's my calling.
I'm Jose Hernandez, sir. I'm an engineer.
You're the new guy, right? That third floor men's room needs toilet paper.
That's what I ended up doing, and I was so glad that I had that ingrown perseverance in me that never allowed me to give up.
What was it inside that never allowed you to give up? Was it family? Was it faith? What was it?
I think it was a combination of a family, faith, and the work ethic.
Going to space, it's a stupid dream. Last 10 candidates were chosen from 12,962 applicants. It's never gonna happen.
Those people who got into the program, what do they have that you don't?
Many people say they're surprised that I became an astronaut in spite of being a migrant farm worker.
Yeah.
And I tell them, you're wrong. I became an astronaut because I was a migrant farm worker. That's where I developed my work ethic, the can't give up attitude.
They have skills that I don't have. It's taken them years to get where they are, but there's no guarantee.
Our director, Alejandra Marquez Abella, did a great job at dignifying the work of a farm worker.
We grew up watching our people make sacrifices. It's on us now.
Tenacity is a superpower.
He grew up in the fields. He learned about resilience and hard work, and he got his work ethic from getting up at 4 a.m. to go and help his family. It's a heroic thing to do.
I know this is hard on everybody. My body hurts, I can't sleep. I know I can make this work.
What was the most prevailing theme for you?
I think community, and I have aversion to individualism. I think that everyone should, collaborate and more openly be helpful to others and their dreams.
This may not be your future, but it will always be your past.
Who better to leave this planet and dive into the unknown than a migrant farm worker?
I cry every time I see the film, and I've seen it thousands of times. It's the soul of the story, something that it's bigger than the form or than anything. It's something that connects with people.
Over the last 10 years, I've applied to the space program 12 times, and I've been on the verge of giving up after each and every rejection. But you know what, sir? Here I am. So you could turn me down again, but rest assured, I'll be standing here again in a year.
Do you have a hope for the project as it's released and people are able to consume and see the story?
I think we are living in times where we have an audience that can be very cynical. And I think this is a very touching, emotional, simple story that I hope will connect with that and will make that cynicism go away a little bit and just reconnect with the good stuff.
You're not crying, are you, Pa?
No, hombre, no. Some dirt got into my eye.
A Million Miles Away is playing right now in select theaters and also streaming on the Amazon Prime platform. We need to take a quick break right here, but before we do, it's time to share this week's story and pictures. Here's your Studio 5 snapshot.
We take you back to Ordinary Angels to let you know studios are pushing back its release. This new Erwin Brothers film will open now February 23rd instead of next month. This is a true story of faith and commitment, with Hilary Swank playing the role of a Kentucky hairdresser who decides to find help for a father who is desperate to save his critically ill daughter not long after losing his wife to illness. The story, now coming in February, is this week's Studio 5 snapshot. Just moments away.
I can't worry about what I don't have. I just need to focus on what I do have. I want to figure out a way to do it myself and make it my own.
Another impossible dream comes true when this wrestler wins a state championship. See how he beat the odds.
Welcome back to Studio 5. Adonis Lattimore's first name means God's blessing. And since the day he was born, Adonis has lived up to that name. What most people consider weakness, he turned into strength and has become a champion.
I was born without the 4 other fingers on my right hand, right leg, and a full left leg.
We were not aware of his condition until he was actually delivered. The umbilical cord wrapped around a limb, and the limb wasn't able to develop. So you could tell that something was wrong.
It was multiple emotions. I mean, it was the excitement of life, but then it was also the grief of lost limbs.
I was sitting there and the nurse said, things happen for a reason, and I was chosen to be his parent.
The first question that I think people always want to ask is what happened and then why. I had to accept the fact that there wasn't going to be a why, and this is what God has given us. And so we accept that. God makes no mistakes.
There are some things I want to do myself, but oftentimes I can't do them. I don't want to rely on other people, become a burden to them. So that's always been my biggest weakness, but it's also a strength because I'm not totally defenseless. I can't worry about what I don't have. I just need to focus on what I do have. One of the 7 deadly sins is envy, or to want something that someone else has. I want to figure out a way to do it myself and make it my own.
It's been hard as far as raising someone that has a uniqueness like him. We have 3 other kids. I'm navigating through how to do things differently than what people take for granted. The little teeny things, you know, the door width, entry on the sidewalk, that's safe. Letting him know that even though it's not the traditional way that things are done, that you still can do it.
I see lower to the ground than most people, so I notice like how things are structured, how things are built up, and what's keeping them up. Things that people take for granted that I tend to notice a lot more.
We're made into the image of God, and when I look at Adonis, everybody has something unique people are drawn to. Embrace it, ask God to show you the way to deal with it, and give you those tools to carry on. No matter how different we all are loved.
The meaning of Adonis' name is God's blessing. It comes from an African proverb. We embrace the name. He's embodied, I would say. Each person has their own identity, that we wanted him to be who he was and what God has in store for him. I competed in sports all throughout my childhood, and I just wanted him to know what it felt like to be able to compete, to allow his abilities to either make the determination of how well he did or didn't do. When he decided that that was something that he wanted, I just wanted to be there and just make sure that if he loves it, then it's a love that I have.
Since I've been tested in life a lot more than the average person would be just in daily life, then when I come to the mat, there's not much that can rattle me. The class 6A, 106-pound state champ, one of the higher accomplishments that you could do in wrestling. You need to have a strong faith even when you can't see something happening, and to tie that to your determination is just as an important aspect as having that faith. There was a point in wrestling where I felt like giving up, and the pressure to fulfill my goal had gotten too much for me to handle. I saw God working, I had faith that he was gonna help me revive my dream. A thought popped in my head that I don't know if I can do this. Just turned off my brain, and then I started wrestling freely. It was almost like I was being guided, but eventually I scored the final points to win the match.
There's something that he said he wanted to do. The journey that come to fruition, priceless. Him to have his moment, to be recognized after the match where they're taking their podium, they're getting their medals. Man, it's the moment that goes back to when he was born, that grief, but also that happiness. It symbolizes what God does for us on a day in and day out basis. The weight that God is carrying, that he carries for us, he's always there. He's always got us. And I don't know what I would do or what I would be if it wasn't for what God continuously does in my life.
I think love carries with it doubt, sadness, fears, anxiety. It carries both the positive and negative things with it, and that's what makes unconditional love. Loving you no matter what and always pulling you back up. Jesus' love, even when it seems like something random happened, even my birth can sort of be like that. Sometimes the greatest blessing can be born from when you're at the lowest moment.
What an excellent journey in this week's Faith on the Field, from childhood to high school and now college. Before we take our next break, we're happy to share this week's #1 story in the countdown. It finishes at the very top of our look at uplifting entertainment this week.
At #1.
I've been homeless. I bathed in a church bathroom. Won 19 Grammys. Had a career that was beyond my imagination. I've survived death several times, endured public shame, but nothing could prepare me for what God had in store for me in 2023.
A mini documentary from gospel music's Kirk Franklin, sharing his emotional journey to learn the deceased man he thought was his birth father was not, and his father is actually still alive.
So I go get my swabs done, and a couple of weeks later, I get a call from my doctor.
It says the results are probable paternity, 99.99999%.
Percent what?
Yes, he's your father.
And you are back in Studio 5. Welcome to you. Music, as you know, helps us to bring this show to you every week. And this week's soundtrack comes from John Baptiste and a live television performance. Take a listen and you'll hear why worship is what's playing in my ear this week. It is only you that makes me all I am. Worship. On that musical note, we are just about out of time for this week's edition of Studio 5. So let's take a look ahead and see what is on next week's rundown.
Music from the heart of contemporary Christian artist Nathan Sheridan.
If you've ever wondered if it's really true, there's no way he won't go. There's nothing.
He shares the story behind his song, Do You Know? And opens up about his personal life here in Studio 5.
My parents abandoned me and my sister at a really young age. And I was born in Louisiana, but they took us to Pensacola for a little while and got so bad off on drugs and alcohol that it was just, you know, we can't do this anymore. And my grandparents drove in the middle of the night, came and got me and my sister.
Well, that's coming up next week. This week, we've got just a few more moments left in the show, and we want to give that to the man who went from toiling the fields as a migrant farm worker to a career in the great outer space. Jose Hernandez has this week's final word.
What would you go back and tell little Jose if you could go back in time and tell that little boy with a big dream? What would you say to him?
Perhaps to enjoy the journey a bit more.
Wow.
Sometimes I try to fast track to my destination without enjoying the journey. And that's where I tell people is that this is why you have to pick a goal where you're going to enjoy the route to getting to your goal. Because I wanted to be an astronaut, it motivated me to go to college. It motivated me to go to graduate school. It motivated me to get a job at Lawrence Livermore National Lab, a world premier research facility. It motivated me to get a job that was good paying. I was enjoying the journey to my goal.
Jose, that is a great final word for this edition of Studio 5 and this week's look at uplifting entertainment. Until next time, make time to uplift someone around you, and then please come on back. See where Studio 5 takes you next week. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for watching.